I never imagined my study of history would unveil a queen scandal that changed lives forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I sat at my desk, crammed with dusty books and crumpled notes, when I stumbled upon a faded letter hidden inside a brittle page. The moment my fingers grazed its surface, a chill crept down my spine. It smelled of old secrets, damp and forgotten. The words danced before my eyes, each stroke of ink heavy with betrayal. Love, longing, and blood. Who was this queen? My heart raced with every revelation, each sentence pulling me deeper into her tragic world. History held no mercy. Unraveling the truth, I could feel the weight of her sorrow pressing against my chest, forcing me to remember. My mind flashed back to my grandmother's tales. She spoke in whispers of an ancient castle, crumbling beneath the shadows of its own past. A castle where the queen once roamed, where laughter echoed, now haunted by quiet despair. I couldn't help but think of my family, how stories connect us. My grandmother, so proud, would have loved to hear this. As I pieced together the puzzle, the path twisted unexpectedly. Secrets veiled in glimmering jewels. A forbidden love. A betrayal that led toward death. I felt the vibrations of history beneath my feet, an ancient pulse of regret and grief. My hands trembled as the implications wrapped around my throat. Suddenly, I understood the stakes. This wasn't just a story of the past, it echoed through our lives today. But my discovery came with a price. Days later, as I dug deeper, I received an ominous message. Stop looking into matters that don't concern you. The shaky text sent my heart racing. Who was watching me? Who wanted the truth to remain buried? I gazed out my window, the world outside moving, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. The flowers bloomed in bright colors, unaware of the darkness lurking beneath. Was I safe? What danger had I unwittingly invited in? Questions swirled and clashed like trapped spirits. With every revelation, I felt myself drowning. I had unearthed a scandal that could change everything, but at what cost? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I held the ragged letter between my trembling hands, trying to decipher its weight. The threat that had found me like a shadow loomed larger than the questions I was asking. I was now part of a narrative that felt much bigger than my own life, weaving itself into the fabric of someone else's tragedy. The chill in my spine had morphed into a low hum of anxiety that thrummed in my ears, reminding me of the danger lurking just beyond my door. Every creak in the old house sounded like whispered warnings urging me to retreat, to forget, but forgetting was no longer an option. It was not just a historical inquiry anymore. It felt personal. There had been too many emotions tied to those words on that page: the queen's dreams, her dashed hopes, her exiled heart. I couldn't simply close the book and walk away. As much as I wished to retreat into oblivion and safety, the past wouldn't let me. I thought of my grandmother, her wise eyes shining with unspoken tales when she wound her fingers through my hair and shared the snippets of our lineage. How would she have reacted to my discovery? I had no idea, but I desperately wanted to find out. With that thought, I made my way to the study, where her voice lingered like an echo. The study was crowded with memories more than actual clutter. Books teetered on shelves like time-worn sentinels, witnessing the devotion my grandmother had poured into each word. I sought out the history texts I had read countless times, hoping to find reassurance amidst the trepidation. As I thumbed through pages filled with stories of valor and loss, a warmth tugged at my heart. Surely, the queen had known love. Hadn't she tasted joy before her world crumbled? I paused, captivated by a fleeting memory of my own first crush, a schoolyard promise forged amidst laughter and stolen glances. It was a small sweetness to remember amidst the encroaching darkness. My fingers brushed against the spine of a book titled The Voices of the Dispossessed. I pulled it out and flipped through the pages, resting on a fading photograph tucked within. A woman in a flowing gown stood poised, a gentle smile illuminating her face. A belt of gems adorned her waist. She could have been the very queen I had been unearthing. The resemblance was hauntingly uncanny. Just then, my phone buzzed, jerking me back to the present. It was a message from Chris, a close friend who knew little of my research but had been a steadfast comfort during recent events. "Hey, wanted to check in on you. You okay?" The sincerity behind those words, especially amid my spiraling doubt, reached through the fog of my thoughts like a lifeline. I texted back, "Can we meet? I could use a friend." When Chris arrived, the warmth of his presence filled the room. He had a way of listening, of letting silence wrap around our shoulders, comforting us in the space between words. I poured out the tumult of thoughts, weaving together the past and present, connecting the dots that felt dangerously intertwined. His brow furrowed, lips pressed together in concentration, and when I finished, the silence stretched between us. "This queen and her story, you think the danger is really real?" he asked, voice low and steady. "Or could it just be anxiety playing tricks on you? Digging into this history might be affecting you more than you realize." His concern was valid. I was spiraling, overwhelmed by what I had unearthed. Yet, dismissing the threats altogether felt naive. I needed to find the truth, not only to bring peace to the Queen's story but also to quell the growing storm inside me. Finally, Chris softly laid a hand over mine. "Whatever happens, I'm here for you." A flicker of hope ignited in me. Perhaps I wasn't alone in this pursuit. I nodded, grateful for his understanding, momentarily allowing myself to breathe again. But our moment of quiet solace was abruptly shattered by a knock on the door. It was deep and rhythmic, echoing through the thick air. My breath caught. Chris stood, shock etched across his face. I knew it wasn't just someone delivering a package. The apprehension curled in my gut. Who was there? Did they know about the letter? My heart raced as Chris gestured for silence and moved toward the door, curiosity and worry contorting his features. As the door creaked open, I braced for the inevitable storm. But nothing could prepare me for what greeted our eyes: a familiar figure, face cloaked in shadows, glaring back with an intensity that paralyzed me. "You shouldn't have gone digging," the voice was hauntingly familiar, echoing through years now threatening to unravel. In that moment, the deep chasm of history and personal life merged into a singular pulse of dread. I felt reality shift under my feet as secrets clawed their way back to the surface. Would I find the truth, or would it consume me whole? The weight of the familiar voice hit me like a wave, knocking the breath from my lungs. My heart raced, the pulsing rhythm echoing in my ears, drowning out the silence that had enveloped us just moments before. I battled against the shock and recognition gnawing at me. It was him, Leo. My childhood friend, once a confidant who shared whispers of our dreams beneath the stars, now stood in the doorway as a harbinger of unease. "What are you doing here?" The question slipped from my lips, trembling with a cocktail of outrage and confusion. His eyes, dark and sharp, betrayed none of the warmth they once held. "We need to talk," he replied, each word sharp like glass. There was a finality in his tone that silenced all protestations. Chris, in a protective stance beside me, echoed my shock, glancing between Leo and me as if we were pieces of a puzzle that no longer fit. "Get out," Chris finally said, his voice steady, though shaky under the tension. I marveled at his courage. It was comforting, yet I felt tethered to Leo, unwilling to sever the connection despite the tumult within me. "Please, just listen." Leo stepped inside the threshold, his presence engulfing me with a mix of nostalgia and dread. I could almost hear the laughter echoing in the hallways of our youthful innocence, clouded now by the specter of betrayal. You shouldn't have uncovered those things, he continued, his demeanor shifting, veering between desperation and assertion. You don't understand the danger, you're the one who doesn't understand, I shot back, emboldened by his unwavering stance. These are my roots, Leo. It's a story that deserves to be told. The words hung between us, heavy and thick with our shared history that I never told you everything, and I. He hesitated, his voice faltering. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. You don't know who you're dealing with, that I can't just walk away. The knot in my throat tightened as I tried to convey my resolve into the air thick with tension. I felt Chris's hand on my shoulder, grounding me, urging me to hold firm. Suddenly, Leo's expression softened. You think this queen's tragedy is just a history lesson? Those people weren't just words on a page, they were real, and their threats are too. His voice softened further, laced with a vulnerability that cut through my rising anger. There are forces at play. Dark forces. A chill rippled through me. His eyes flickered with concern for something beyond my comprehension, as if ghosts of the past were rising behind him. For an agonizing instant, I was suspended between our past filled with careless joy and an uncertain future that whispered of menacing shadows. Then help me understand, I implored, fatigue lacing my tone. Don't leave me in the dark, Leo. You were part of my life, don't shut me out now. That he seemed to wrestle with an internal struggle, breathing heavily as emotions crashed against his facade. I know what's at stake, but I can't involve you any further. It's dangerous. Then what choice do I have? I felt the ground beneath me shift again, a familiar rhythm and chaos building within me. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed again on the desk, a harsh reminder of reality. The sudden noise fractured the piercing silence in the room. I reached for it, trembling with anxiety, my eyes flickering back to Leo. It was an unknown number. Hesitating, I answered, my voice barely a whisper. Hello? A static-laden voice emerged on the other end. You need to stop digging or else. I reeled, my pulse quickening as the gravity of those words crashed over me. Chris's concerned eyes met mine, and Leo stepped closer, the anger flickering back onto his face. You see? This is exactly what I was talking about. Fighting against the fear squeezing my heart, I struggled to maintain my composure, all while the walls seemed to close in. What do you want? Who are you? But the line went dead, and I was left standing there, the silence wrapping around us once more, weighted with the truth that there were things I was unprepared to face. Could both the narrative of the Queen and my own life intertwine so dangerously? Leo's gaze burned into mine, intense and laden with unspoken fear as the realization settled upon us. I had unraveled something that lay far deeper than mere history. The fragile line between past and present had snapped, and I was thrust into a storm that threatened to swallow me whole. Get out, I whispered again, but this time, I couldn't tell if I meant it for him or myself. I felt cornered, ensnared in a web crafted by choices, revelations, and dire consequences. What then? Leo whispered back, shattered pieces of our friendship hanging in the air like fragile thread. You think you can just walk away from this? I've made mistakes, aren't you tired of running? He didn't know. I had never stopped running, now I was only running toward the heart of a storm that might consume me. And as I looked into his eyes, I felt the uncanny realization bloom, running was no longer an option. With one final, unresolved stare shared between us, a new layer of truth dawned, one that would require courage, tenacity, and the willingness to face the shadows head-on. I didn't know where it would lead, but the knowledge had become an undeniable calling, an insatiable urgency worth every risk, even at the peril of unearthing everything I thought I knew. But first, I had to confront my past before it swallowed me whole. The room seemed to expand around us, the air thick with unspoken histories. I could feel Chris' presence beside me like a shield, yet Leo's intensity drew my focus, revealing the raw truth beneath the bravado he wore. Stop running? I echoed softly, my mind racing back over the years. I had always been the one eager to flee at the first sign of danger or discomfort, but now I was at a crossroads. From what? My past? You don't understand, maybe you don't, he shot back, regret prickling his tone. You think history exists in books. But it lives within people. Trust me, it's more alive than you realize. The anger melted into a flicker of fear, one that echoed in the hallways of my heart, reverberating with the echoes of my childhood. I had spent so many years convinced that the world outside was filled with endless possibilities, yet here I was, shackled by the size of a memory. Chris broke the tension, stepping forward. We can't ignore this. There's something bigger lurking behind these secrets, and if it's dangerous, we have to plan. He locked eyes with Leo, searching for a hint of cooperation. Leo's shoulders sagged, the weight of history pressing heavily upon him. You don't understand how far this goes. We're treading on ground that could collapse beneath us. Then we need to find common ground, I insisted, my voice steady despite the tremors racing under my skin. The stakes were rising, and for every second we spent in silence, the shadows of the unknown crept closer. Help us connect the dots. We can face this together, but the apprehension in Leo's eyes nipped at the edges of my resolve. You think it's that simple? I thought we'd left this behind. That I clenched my fists, feeling the warmth of Chris' hand brush against my back as he leaned closer. You're right. It's not simple. But it's a part of who we are, and you can't just what? Leo interrupted, his frustration morphing into desperation. Pretend it doesn't exist? Or worse, drag someone else into it? Especially when I know the kind of danger you might face. Guilt coiled tightly around me. How many times had I tried to erase my past, to wipe it clean of its bruises? But the reflection standing in front of me was a mirror I could no longer ignore. I was painted in hues of Leo's storm and my impending fight. It's too late for that. The storm is already here, Leo, I replied fiercely. And now that I know, there's no turning back. There was a beat of silence, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in Leo's eyes, a brief acknowledgement of the bond we once shared. You need to handle this carefully. His voice softened, as if the walls around us were closing in tighter, urging him to step closer. The truth hung there, strained and fragile between us, like the thread of fate binding our lives together. But just as that glimmer of understanding surged toward the surface, it was shattered by my phone ringing again, this time with an ominous message-an alert that made my skin crawl. Did you get that message? Chris demanded, his voice laced with adrenaline. My heart raced as I realized that it was the same unknown number. Gathering my breath, I answered, hoping for clarity instead of foreboding. Hello? This time, the voice crackled on the line, deeper and colder, reverberating like a dark herald. Time is running out. You are too close. Back off while you can. A chill coursed through me, more potent than the terror brought by a dark room. Who are you? I implored, unwilling to succumb to fear just yet. You will learn soon enough. But know this: stepping into the darkness always has a price. The line went dead. My heart raced as I dropped my phone, the sound of my heartbeat resounding in my ears. Chris moved instinctively closer, grounding me. We can't ignore this. It's real. It's not just a story anymore, is it? I murmured, dread creeping in. Leo stepped back, as if my realization had struck a chord. That's the part you need to understand, he said, his voice dripping with regret and resignation. History is never just history. Before I could gather my thoughts, the lights flickered above us, momentarily plunging the room into darkness. My breath hitched as shadows flickered and danced, warping the edges of reality, overtaking us with a sense of impending doom. Let's find a way out, Leo said, urgency piercing his hesitance. Now, but there was something unsettling about his words. Was he worried about my safety, or did he have his own ghosts to face? As we moved toward the door, an unexpected knock reverberated through the silence. Chris exchanged glances with me, his eyes wide with alarm. Who could that be? He whispered, his unease wrapping around my heart like steel. Maybe we won't have to find out, Leo said, holding my gaze before averting his eyes toward the door. A tumultuous struggle dancing within him. And I can't let you. Just then, the door creaked open, and in stepped a figure cloaked in shadow. The tense atmosphere shuddered, carrying with it a weight that felt all too familiar. "Surprise," the figure said, revealing a face I thought I knew, but the transformation stole the breath from my lungs. It was someone I had loved, altered by secrets I would have never fathomed. In that heart-stopping second, as truths collided and fears materialized, I realized that no one was safe, and the weight of history now rested heavily upon all our shoulders. The room felt impossibly small as I stared at the figure before me, my heart racing with disbelief. With every heartbeat, the memories unspooled, leaving stark images of laughter, warmth, and tender moments that now felt smothered by shadows. "Mina?" I finally breathed, scarcely daring to utter the name, hoping I had conjured an apparition rather than faced an old flame. Mina stood there, her face a canvas of familiarity and weariness, a battleground that echoed both past tenderness and present turmoil. "It's been a long time," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but it trembled with the weight of everything left unsaid. Chris instinctively stepped in front of me, his posture tense as he assessed the situation, a protective instinct kicking in. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, though the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed his bravado. "I came to warn you," Mina replied, her gaze flickering between me and Leo, every syllable steeped in urgency. "You're close to something you shouldn't touch. It's dangerous. You don't know what you're dealing with." "Like we haven't been told that before," Leo muttered, incredulity coating his words. He had retreated slightly, his body language closing off as though he sensed the rift of memories churning between us. "Maybe that's why I had to come," Mina pressed on, her voice growing firmer. "You think you're prepared, but the deeper you go, the more you'll uncover, and not all of it will be easy to bear." "What happened to you, Mina?" I asked, swept up in a whirlwind of emotions as unbidden tears threatened to spill. My heart clenched at the sight of her. She'd always been a beacon in my storm, and yet here she stood, a stranger cloaked in shadows. "Why do you sound like you've returned from war?" Her eyes glistened with something resembling sorrow. "Because I have, in a way. I've been fighting battles I never thought I'd have to face. Battles that involve all of you, whether you like it or not." "Define battles," Chris interjected, his brow furrowing as he tried to understand the tangled mess we were now knee-deep in. "Enough battles to have put me on the other side of a very dark alliance," she replied softly, and her words struck me like icy daggers. "The kind that operates out of desperation, where loyalty is nothing more than a currency to be spent ruthlessly." As the silence draped over us thickly, Leo shook his head, the tension in his muscles palpable. "You're endangering them, Mina. Whatever this is," he motioned between us, "whatever you're involved in, we're not part of it, yet here I am," she shot back, voice rising as echoes of a once shared bond strained against the atmosphere. "Believe me when I say that being part of this is no longer a choice but a necessity." My thoughts spiraled, torn between past affection and the fear of this uncertainty unfurling before us like a tangled thread. "What do you know about the shadows we're chasing?" I asked, desperate to glean something useful. "What risks are we facing?" "They're watching you," she replied, her voice trembling as the truth rained down. "The same people who've kept me quiet. They don't care who you are or what you're trying to accomplish. They care only about preserving their power, and they're willing to do anything to protect it." That suggestion hung heavy in the air, stinging like frostbite against my skin. The nagging uncertainty that had plagued me since the beginning intensified, threatening to swallow all remnants of hope. Chris turned to me, his eyes searching mine for stability amid the chaos. "What do we do, Mara?" I wanted to believe there was some way to navigate this disaster, some path that would not lead us to ruin. My pulse quickened, a chorus of emotions vying for attention: fear, sorrow, and a flicker of determination. "We confront it," I said, the words feeling firmer as I spoke them aloud. "Together." Mina's features flickered with a hint of admiration, but it quickly morphed into a deeper concern. "No. You don't understand. Even if you find the courage to face this, you'll need more than resolve. You'll need allies, and you'll have to discern who your true friends are. Be vigilant, because the line between friend and foe is about to blur." Before I could respond, a sudden crash echoed from outside. It jolted us from the moment, and the atmosphere shifted, electrifying the air with apprehension. "What was that?" Chris asked, his voice taut with fear. Leo stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he regarded the door. "We have to get out of here," he insisted, casting a worried glance at Mina. "If they found you, then we're all exposed," she finished, her words laced with urgency. I felt the weight of decisions pressing down hard on my chest, but within that weight was a nugget of resolve, a small flicker of determination to reclaim not just my past, but a future beyond this storm. Just as the three of us began to move, an intense light burst through the window, a blinding flash that felt like a warning shot. I turned toward it, heart pounding as the reality of our predicament crystallized around me. Then, the unthinkable happened. The floor beneath me began to tremble, and a voice called out from the chaos. "You all need to listen, there's no escape." With that, a surge of panic pierced through the air, and my heart dropped as the truth cracked open. Someone was orchestrating this chaos, and in that moment, I understood the depth of our entanglement. Each step forward now felt precarious, threaded with the weight of voices I could no longer ignore. The history that had once felt like a chain was now a net tightening around us, and the storm on the horizon was growing ever closer. Dread coiled within as I caught Mina's eye, with one last question lingering in my heart. Are we truly ready for what's coming? But silence answered, leaving echoes of our uncertainty trembling in the air, amplifying the darkness that loomed ahead, a darkness that promised to unravel the very fabric of our lives. The ground continued to quake beneath us, its rumble barely masking the dread that clung to the air. With the light still blazing, it felt as if time had curled in on itself, holding us in a fragile bubble of uncertainty. I instinctively reached for Chris's hand, seeking the warmth that reminded me we were not alone in this struggle. "Where's it coming from?" Leo shouted, his voice strained with urgency. "Out the back!" Mina exclaimed, her eyes darting toward the shadowy entrance that led to the alley. "We have to go now." I didn't have to think twice. I pulled Chris along with me, trying to fight the rising panic bubbling in my chest. We hurried through the narrow room, Mina leading the way, her urgency fueling our flight as Leo followed close behind. Outside, chaos reigned. Smoke billowed and flickered with the harsh glow of fire. The distant roar of sirens grew nearer, but the commotion didn't feel like a rescue, it felt like it was closing in on us. "What in the world is happening?" I gasped as we stumbled into the alley, my lungs heavy with the acrid scent of burning debris. "They're trying to flush us out." "We need to stay low," Mina instructed, her demeanor shifting from fear to fierce determination. In the shuffle, I caught a glimpse of movement off to the side. Bodies sprinting, shadows ducking in and out of sight. My heart raced, a landscape of fear wrapped in the shroud of familiar faces twisted by uncertainty. "Are those?" I started, but Leo cut me off, scanning the alley with a watchful eye. "They aren't with us," he urged. "Just keep moving." A surge of desperation gripped me as I ran, and I didn't resist the urge to glance back over my shoulder. The fleeting sight of familiar faces, old friends lost in the flood of our shared past, sent a dagger of anguish through me. They had become casualties of a world where secrets bifurcated friendships and shattered bonds. Mina guided us through a narrow passage, her voice a beacon amidst the clamor. "If we can reach the underground tunnels, they won't be able to track us." I was barely keeping pace, the weight of the lurking shadows staunching my breath. "Why didn't you warn me about this when you showed up?" I gasped, the frustration spilling over. "You stood in my living room, pouring out shadows and threats, but when it mattered, you didn't say a word about I didn't know. I didn't want this for you." She shouted, pausing to meet my gaze, her expression tormented with regret. "But now it's real. There's no more running from it, Mara. You have to believe me, I'm trying to protect you." My heart ached with the sting of her words, recalling countless moments where our hopes for the future had twisted into something unrecognizable. "This doesn't feel like protection," I muttered, uncertainty surging within. Just then, a deafening clang echoed through the alley as heavy footsteps approached. The sound of boots pounding against the pavement crackled with a promise of pursuit. "Run!" Chris barked, shattering the disillusionment weighing us down. We darted into the depths of the alley, shivering as dread curled around us. I could feel it almost tangibly, a force creeping in, tightening like a noose. As we reached a rusted door at the end of the passage, Mina kicked it open, revealing a dark void down there. She urged, gesturing toward a rickety staircase leading into the abyss. We hesitated, uncertainty clouding the path before us. My heart raced, and I fought against the instinct to turn back, to face whatever awaited us in the light. Instead, I followed her lead, a warmth buried deep in the resolve that pushed me onward despite the fear coiling around my heart. As we descended, the darkness swallowed us whole, wrapping around us like a heavy blanket. My senses heightened, and with each step, I felt the weight of secrets and lies pulsing in the air, closer than ever to suffocating. Do you remember what I said about discerning friends from foes? Mina's voice broke through the heavy silence, tinged with something that felt like urgency and regret. It's coming faster than we anticipated. You need to trust your instincts. What did you mean by allies? I pressed, feeling shadows dance on the heels of my words. But before she could answer, a sudden noise punctured the darkness, a gasp, a creaking of wood, an eye-watering silence. We froze, hearts pounding in sync as a figure stepped out from the shadows like a ghost from the past. You thought you could hide forever? The voice carried an edge sharp enough to cut through the tension. I recognized it immediately, and a chill enveloped me, freezing the blood in my veins. My pulse accelerated as the realization settled. Aini had thought this figure was a trusted ally, a friend, but as they stepped forward into the dim light, dread twisted into despair. I've come to collect what's owed, they said, their gaze fixing on me with an intensity that promised nothing good. The world around me blurred as uncertainty crashed over me like a tidal wave. The connections we held so dearly had morphed into chasms, and I stood on the precipice of everything I once believed, and suddenly, I realized the fight of my life had only just begun. The echo of their voice hung in the air like the stench of burnt memories. My heart slammed against my chest as the figure before us loomed larger, their silhouette slicing through the darkness like a knife. This was not merely a person. It was the specter of betrayal, a reminder of choices that had unraveled everything I thought I knew. Jasper, I breathed, barely forming the name as if saying it might somehow bring the weight of their betrayal crashing down on me. Chris instinctively stepped closer to me, shielding me, his presence a flicker of warmth against the chill that seeped through my bones. What do you want? He demanded, the protective edge in his voice battling with the shaking uncertainty beneath it. Jasper's lips curled into a smirk, though it didn't reach their eyes. You know what I want, Mara. You've ignited a fire you're not prepared to extinguish. It's time to pay for your ignorance. Mina took a step forward, her hands raised slightly in a gesture of negotiation. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. Jasper cut her off with a bitter laugh. There is no other way. She has what's owed, and you all are merely collateral, standing in the way of something bigger than you can comprehend. A surge of conflicting emotions flooded my veins, anger, betrayal, and the familiar stab of heartache. You used me, I whispered, the truth clawing its way out, raw and painful. All those times we shared stories, laughed over coffee. Oh, Mara, it was all a means to an end, they interjected, the venom in their voice now palpable. You offered access to power, and I took it while you sat blissfully unaware. But now, ignorance isn't bliss, it's a menace. Each word felt like a dagger, chiseling away the facade of trust one had carefully constructed. I took a step back, shaking my head as the realization of their manipulation spiraled in my mind. Chris' hand tightened around my wrist, grounding me, but even that was barely enough as dread washed over me. Enough. Mina shouted, fury igniting in her eyes. You don't have to follow this path, Jasper. There's still a chance to walk away from this. We can change. This isn't a game. Jasper snapped, their anger bubbling to the surface. There is no changing history, Mina. You of all people should know that I felt the uncertainty coalesce into resolve, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest as I stared into the abyss of Jasper's gaze. History can be rewritten, I said, surprising even myself with the strength of my voice. You've made a choice, but it doesn't mean I have to follow your lead. Jasper's eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the glimmer of doubt flicker in their expression, almost like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. "You really think you can fight this?" they asked, a note of incredulity lacing their tone. "You're out of your depth, Mara," but it was in that moment of doubt where I felt something begin to turn within me. This wasn't just about understanding history, Anna Marie, it was about standing firm in the truth of my own choices. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from above, pouring a cascade of dust and debris down around us. Shadows shifted, and in those fleeting fragments of confusion, a burst of glowing light illuminated the space, creating a surreal painting against the darkness. "Run!" Leo shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, and before I could register the order, he pulled at Mina, urging her toward the staircase. "We don't have time." In that split second of panic, Jasper darted forward, a flash of movement that caught us off guard. My heart raced with dread as they lunged, but Chris positioned himself between us, his determination shining fiercely in the dim glow. "Get her out of here!" he cried, his voice ringing with urgency. "Chris," I began, but realization swallowed my words as he turned to face me, his expression resolute. "Go." Now, without thinking, I followed Mina and Leo up the stairs, adrenaline pulsing through my veins, terror threatening to overtake me. I glanced back, just as Chris collided with Jasper. The grip of their confrontation sent shudders through me. But I forced myself to keep moving, the weight of what I had lost growing heavier as we reached the surface. Once outside, the chaos of the street greeted us with open arms, siren wails and shouted commands punctuated the air, but the weight of Chris' sacrifice hung like a noose around my heart. I couldn't look back, couldn't confront the consequences of our choices while still holding on to hope. As we fled deeper into the darkness of an alley, I could feel Mina's hand gripping my arm, as if sharing in the severity of our despair. "We have to keep going," she huffed. "There has to be a place to regroup," but in the throes of exhaustion and fear, my mind was spinning with the knowledge of what was at stake. Jasper's words echoed harshly, everything we believed was crumbling. I had left a piece of my heart behind when I turned my back, and I didn't know if I could regain it. Then, amidst the chaos, I saw a flicker of movement, a figure stepping from an alleyway, their face concealed beneath a hood. Beneath the layers of dread, curiosity peaked in me as they raised their hand, palm upward. "Right this way," the figure urged, their voice a haunting melody within the chaos. "You're not as alone as you think." Every instinct screamed at me to be cautious, to turn and flee, but a deeper pulsing in my gut guided me forward. Could they be the ally Mina had spoken of? Or would they pull me deeper into the labyrinth of deception? As we stepped toward the unknown, an unsettling conviction settled in around me. The revelations weren't just on the precipice, they were about to consume us whole. And in that precarious moment, I realized the path ahead would be shrouded in shadows, where friendships would be tested and trust twisted into something dangerously fragile. And before the exit loomed a harbinger of uncertain fate, I couldn't shake the lurking thought: what if Chris were left behind to face the storm? What if I had just changed the course of everything, and the cost was far greater than I could ever bear? A shiver coursed through me as I drew closer to the figure shrouded in darkness. Their hood obscured their features, but an energy emanated from the man, electricity that hummed in the charged silence of the alley. Mina and Leo flanked me, and though fear prickled at my skin, the promise of escape stirred something elusive within. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my heart still racing from the chaos we had fled. "Someone who knows more than you realize," they answered, a hint of warmth threading through their cryptic tone. "Your connections run deeper than just friendship. There are forces at play that you haven't even begun to understand." I glanced at Mina and Leo, their faces mirroring my uncertainty, but something in the mysterious figure's gaze ignited a flicker of hope. What if they held answers we desperately needed? "Come," the figure urged again, a motion beckoning us forward. "I can help you. But you need to trust me, and trust is a rare currency these days." "Trust? After everything with Jasper?" Mina let out a small, bitter laugh. "We're supposed to abandon caution now. Sometimes, to find your way out of the darkness, you must take a leap of faith," the figure replied, their voice steady yet soft, a stark contrast to the chaos consuming our world. "If you wish to save the ones you love, you don't have much time. Suddenly, a deep rumble echoed from the street behind us. Voices calling out in urgency, the sirens growing closer. There was an unmistakable sense of urgency that charged through my veins, igniting an ember of courage that had been threatening to flicker out. "Okay," I said, surprising myself. "Well, follow you." I nodded to Mina and Leo, who exchanged skeptical glances but acquiesced. Stepping into line behind me, the figure led us into the depths of the alley, and the moment we crossed the threshold, I felt an inexplicable weight lift. Shadows danced around us, weaving intricate stories of those who had come before. For a moment, I could almost hear whispers, echoes of the past intertwining with my own sense of history. "Are you ready to learn about the truth?" the figure asked, pausing briefly to face me, a spark of challenge mingled with kindness in their eyes. With a deep breath, I nodded once more. "I need to know what choice I made, what lies before us, then we must act quickly." As the figure turned back toward the unfolding darkness, I felt an almost magnetic pull toward them, a connection that transcended the fear currently bubbling in my chest. If they were hinting at the truth that could free us or destroy us, I was ready to confront it. Yet, as we neared the end of the alley, we were met with a sight that sent ice racing through my veins. Ahead of us, a group of figures stood silhouetted against the dim lights of a roundabout, their stances menacing, a fateful blockade between us and our escape. "Jasper's allies," the figure warned softly. "They know you're here. We must even the odds." "What do you mean?" I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. The figure pulled back their hood, revealing sharp features framed by cascading waves of dark hair. The identity took a moment to register, but when it did, I gasped. It was Alexa, former ally turned rogue after an ideological schism shattered everything we built. "You?" I breathed, incredulity mingling with dread. Alex's piercing gaze met mine. "I want to make things right, Mara. But I can't do it alone. You and your friends are more important to this cause than you know, but are you here to help or to betray us again?" Leo spat, his voice edged with rage. "I've changed," Alex insisted, the urgency rising in their tone. "Jasper has been playing us all against one another. Think about it, it's all a game to them. If you want to save Chris, we need to put aside our past grudges and unite." That I stood frozen, grappling with what Alex proposed. Could I really trust them again? The doubt coiled tightly within me, knotting my insides. "Time is not on our side, Mara," Alex pressed, urgency heightening their words. "We have to make a choice now," and then everything shifted. The figures at the roundabout turned, rising from their posts, and a wave of fear rushed through me. In that split second, I knew the haunting truth: Jasper was no longer the only threat. They had allies entrenched deeply, and whatever game was unfolding was far from over. "Just say the word," Alex said, eyes fierce with determination. "We can fight back together, but you will need to decide who to trust. Choose wisely." As uncertainty enveloped us like a smothering blanket, my heart thudded violently against my ribs, a fresh pang of fear tying itself around my throat. My voice trembled as I whispered, "What if the wrong choice costs us everything?" Yet before I could ponder my next words, the opening flourish of chaos erupted once more. A shout rang out, and in that instant, I realized the stakes were far higher than any of us had anticipated. With my heart racing and uncertainty creeping in like shadows, I was left with an impossible decision. Would I extend my hand to an ally with a fractured past, or would I stand alone, lost in the storm? The night was pregnant with danger, and I could feel it tightening around me like a noose, choking out the hope I had finally found. As the figures rushed toward us, an overpowering sense of helplessness enveloped me. Adrenaline surged through my veins, and I fought to clear the fog of uncertainty clouding my mind. The alley's shadows seemed to deepen, each flicker of light revealing my indecision. Mina and Leo stood tense at my sides, awaiting my command, their apprehensive glances betraying the turmoil within them. "Choose wisely," Alex's words echoed, heavy with the weight of our shared history. In our past battles against Jasper, Alex had been a steadfast companion, a source of comfort during the darkest times. But betrayal had carved a deep scar in my trust, and whether they were sincere now hung in the air like a blade ready to drop. "What if I'm wrong?" I finally managed to say, my voice shaking under the pressure of impossible choices. Then we'll face the consequences together, Alex replied, eyes blazing with passion. You have to believe we can forge a new path. Time seemed frozen as the threat approached, feet pounding the pavement, voices raised in excitement and anger, a chaotic anthem that surged with every heartbeat. Then, just as the figures broke into the alley, a memory flitted through my thoughts, sunshine streaming through the trees, laughter echoing in the park as Alex had once pointed out, a group of pigeons fluttering overhead. That's the beauty of freedom, they'd said. I could almost feel their warmth, their laughter, weaving into the fabric of my heart. But tears pricked at my eyes, saturated with conflicting emotions. Talk, I squeezed through my clenched throat, taking a hesitant step forward. Talk and convince us that you mean it. Alex seized the moment, stepping between us and the encroaching threat. Jasper has lured you into a web of lies, twisting our loyalties and pitting us against each other. If you don't trust me, just ask yourselves why he's targeting you. He fears who you know and what we can do together. That's the truth. An icy chill gripped my heart as I recalled the fractured words of Chris, the earnest hope in his voice as he had urged me to sift through the chaos to find my own truth. If only I could feel his presence now, yet, with each pounding footstep, uncertainty clawed at my resolve. I looked toward Mina, who shifted nervously, her fingers twitching, betraying her helplessness as she wrestled silently with loyalty and suspicion. Alex. I started again, faltering, the intensity of the moment painting uncertainty across my brow. Suddenly, the first figure that lunged into view revealed a face I recognized all too well, an old friend from our days fighting against Jasper, Ethan. But now, his eyes gleamed with something I had never seen before, an uncompromising determination simmering under layers of betrayal. Mara. He shouted, scrambling to speak over the chaos. You don't have to side with him. We've got this covered. Just follow me, and I promise I'll protect you. My mind whirled. What was happening? The two former allies, both turned to opposing sides, stood poised before me, each offering diverging paths. I felt torn between two young adults who had once shared laughter under the sun, who would sacrifice so much for what they deemed right. Make the choice. Alex urged, eyes wild, breaking through the chaos around us. You must decide quickly or risk losing everything. In that moment, Leo stepped forward, a glimmer of resolve flaring to life in his expression. Mara, think about Chris. Whatever is brewing between them, we need to pull together. We can't let Jasper manipulate us anymore. The word struck me deeper than I anticipated. Chris was the linchpin of everything. We had to protect him, find a way to bring him back from whatever darkness Jasper had ensnared him in. And yet, the fear in my chest felt insurmountable, nearly suffocating. Trust can be forged anew, Leo pressed. I could sense his own wrestling within, the fear of making the wrong decision coursing through him. I felt it too. But locked within me was the knowledge that we could only defeat Jasper together. Grab my hand. I shouted suddenly, a wild urge igniting through me as the figures drew closer. Well, fight, but you need to pick a side now. And just as I closed my eyes and steadied my breath, my heart sank as Jasper's voice rang out, chilling and sharp. You're all fools to believe you possess any power over me. You don't even know about the Queen. Shock rippled through my body, and the revelations began to tumble down like dominoes. I staggered back, trying to absorb the implications of his words. The Queen? Mina echoed, confusion swirling. What are you talking about? Suddenly, pieces of the puzzle began to align in my mind. A Queen scandal, the very thing that could alter the course of history, a dark revelation leading straight back to our present. The line was drawn in the sand. How had we not seen it before? Jasper smiled, watching us unravel, crafting his narrative as we stood there, clinging to fragile threads of loyalty, constructive resolve slowly fading. My mind raced, visions of what the truth could mean spooling out at light speed. Jasper, don't, I called out, sensing the darkness he was about to unleash, but it was too late. His laughter echoed behind me, a haunting melody, as I became aware of the crowd advancing from all sides, ensnaring us in their trap. Desperate to steer us from the abyss, I took a deep breath, preparing to make my choice. But in that moment of clarity, as uncertainty tangled with hope, I felt the world tilt around me, a violent shift veering into chaos that I had never imagined. That one choice could seal not only our fates but unearth the shrouded truth of the pasta, truth guarded by shadows. Whatever lay ahead would challenge everything we thought we knew, and as darkness pulled me deeper into its uncertainty, I could only hold tight to hope and brace for the impending storm. The moment felt suspended in time, a heartbeat away from chaos. Shadows loomed like specters around us, and I felt an intoxicating blend of fear and courage clash within my core. Jasper's mocking laughter echoed, reverberating through the alley like a thunderous drum, drowning out reason and courtesy. With every beat, it was harder to see the light. "Don't listen to him," Mina shouted, her voice sharp against the cacophony of uncertainty. "He's trying to manipulate us." But just as I considered our options, my mind turned to Chris, his sincere worry for my safety, his unwavering support and laughter, an anchor in this tempest. If I was going to make a choice, it had to be one that would free him from the grip of Jasper's darkness. "Everyone stand together," I commanded, my voice rising above the din as adrenaline surged through me. Time was slipping away, but my focus began to crystallize. We've faced shadows before. Remember the stories from the past, the strength of unity, the tales my grandmother told? This isn't just about history. It's about making sure it doesn't repeat itself in blood. And if he has already claimed Chris? Leo countered, doubt flashing through his eyes. I caught a glimpse of his fear and let it ignite in me a fierce flame instead. "Then we fight to bring him back," I retorted, my resolve firming. Memories crashed over me like waves, shared laughter, reclaiming power, guarding one another's hearts. We could reconnect those lost threads, binding us through this darkness. "All right," Leo exclaimed, seizing my hand. "We take a stand," Mina nodded fiercely, her gaze sharp, while I reached out to Alex, who took my other hand, uncertainty flickering across their features. In that terrifying moment of clarity, I realized you didn't forge unwavering trust, we crafted it through shared resolve amidst the uncertainty. Jasper sneered, sensing our union. "You think this unresolved past can shield you? You're merely pawns in a game far beyond your comprehension. The Queen's secrets shall drown you." "That's where you're wrong, Jasper," I shouted back, the rising tide of bravery filling my voice like a gale-force wind. "We hold the power above your games, and I choose our history over your shadows. Whatever those secrets are, well, face them together." As we raised our hands in defiance, the air crackled with charged energy, the intensity thick enough to cut through. Jasper's laughter faltered slightly, realization dawning on him that our union would create an unpredictable storm. For the first time, a flicker of concern crossed his face. The Queen was not merely a chapter of the past, she was a beacon of strength. I continued, feeling the wave of strength tide through each of us. Her story is intertwined with ours. We reclaim our narrative. With one final resolute breath, we surged forward as only united front that had lain dormant for too long. The shadows parted slightly, revealing the figures that had once felt monstrous. Alex and Leo moved gracefully beside Mina, hunting together toward our shared future, but the instant my eyes locked onto Jasper again, the flicker of his fear turned into fury. A twisted smile formed as he raised one arm, calling forth dark energy to tighten its grip on us. A quick glance at Alex revealed their understanding, giving me a nod that sparked a hint of resolve once more. "Prepare yourselves," I shouted, rallying the strength within. Mina echoed my call. "We have faced each other before. We've broken down walls. Together, stand strong." The shadows began to close in, dirt and remnants of lost certainty swirling around, but within that maelstrom, I felt the warmth of our hands binding to one another tighten, a force of friendship and familial connection forming the net that would not break. "Channel that strength." I pressed, and I took a deep breath, summoning memories and stories that seeped through my roots, me grandmother whispering promises of resilience and hope as they shielded me from darkness. With that profound connection grafted into our existence, we surged forward as one against the encroaching wave of darkness. It rippled through the alley like a tide crashing against unforgiving rocks, but I felt it bend before us, as if our combined strength had turned the tide. though our path was perilous, each of us bore the whispers of those lost mothers, fathers, friends, and the promise of a future unfurling before our eyes. And as we reached the epicenter of the chaos, I locked eyes with Jasper. What you sought to bury cannot hide in the depths. You've only awakened the truth, I declared, forcing the words through the storm that surrounded us, and then, it happened. A blinding flash erupted from our unified presence, a kaleidoscope of colors swirling chaotically. It cascaded with the force of our combined will, illuminating the alley with warmth. Shadows buckled, radiance pouring into every fracture, and an energy surged through our linked hands, wrapping over us like a blanket of light. In that defining moment, I understood the essence of choice. When faced with darkness, one could seize the opportunity to reclaim not only the past but also pave a way forward, to break into liberating light. And as the shadows receded, I tasted the sweet hope of a truth hidden in our history, the fierce resilience born from love, the legacy of stories shared. I would remember this day, and despite the heartache that painted my past, I chose to embrace the profound gift of connection, a bond that would echo across generations. And as I felt that moment stretch into eternity, a final thought rang through me, illuminating my heart: forgiveness blooms not from forgetting, but from understanding. Always fighting for the light ahead, together is the strongest choice of all, I murmured, feeling the heartbeat of our union pulse powerfully around us, resonating with the promise of a new dawn.